There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want.
Government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.
The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, from Charlotte, another line going from in Florida down to Tampa. Of Putin's kleptocracy, yeah. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him. The idea that Los Angeles and what am I doing here? For two reasons. One, we haven't been able to communicate it in a way that is, let me say another way. But the nature, not a solid meeting with they make a very good point. Here's the deal. Let's be clear. I hear it all the time. Cumulative, definitely, I can play for the programs many times over.
Well, I'm sick and tired of smart guys.
Let me start off with two words. Made in America. Made in America.
Welcome back to another night of Shtick with Koolfrogg. You know, I wasn't going to do anything tonight, and I'm like, I got a lot of articles sitting here that hold that I just feel like I gotta get them out. I gotta actually remove them from the save, from the hold that I got them in, and actually just produce something or whatever. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. Who cares? It's Sunday night. Let's go. Let's have some fun. You know, why not? Let's say hi to everybody real quick that's here. Looks like Nix is here. How I miss George Carlin. I'm with you on that one, brother. I really seriously miss him in a whole, everything that he was about. He wasn't just the best comedian around. He was so smart for his time. He really seriously knew what he was talking about. And a lot of people didn't actually think that way. A lot of people didn't think that he was actually, ahead of his time, knowing what was actually going to happen in the future. It's kind of something. It's very fun, very interesting. What's up, Winning Reality? Good to see you, brother. Glad you're here. We're going to go through several things tonight. You can see at the top, it says Erdogan, debt ceiling, Fort Cavazos, and more. Those things in themselves, third decade for Erdogan, debt ceilings seriously not even being thought of. They really just they don't care about us as human beings, as part of this United States of America. They don't care. They really don't. They're just going to do whatever the hell they want. And Fort Cavazos, really seriously, when you hear what they've done to actually rename this particular fort, most might be okay with them actually changing it from Fort Hood to Fort Cavazos. But at the same time, removing history over and over again does what? Stops it from being taught. Stops it from being taught. If you don't teach history, you don't learn from history. History has a tendency to repeat itself over and over again. So let's take away the history and go ahead and do such a thing and not teach anybody about what it was exactly, why it was named the way it was originally, and let's tank the country. Let's take the country even further than it already has been. um Sometimes, man, I gotta do what a man gotta do. Whip it out and not stand on things like news. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I don't normally run stuff on Saturdays, so uh, after having a couple nights in a row of not doing anything, I usually have a whole big slew of stuff to actually cover here. So we're going to try hitting that and getting going on it as soon as we possibly can here, just to try pushing it through, see if I can't get it done in a timely manner. I will be back in the morning for a Memorial Day special at a regular morning hour of 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. That's 8 o'clock for you is out there on that East Coast. Uh, that will be a thing. Don't forget, I do talk to my chat. If you're here, you say something, I will most likely talk to you and conversate with you in some way, shape, or form. Don't forget to hit the like buttons for me. Share this out to all your favorite places that you like to share things. But which history? The one that happened or the one on my truth rewritten for my sensible self? I hear you, Nix. I really do. It's rough when you actually start seeing, places like New York Times just going and rewriting something the way they want it written as opposed to the way it actually did happen. Maybe it didn't. Maybe nobody exactly knows the truth. We're just told stories from both sides, and we get to pick and choose on what we decide we want to believe. That being said, let's kick this up here. Let's move up and start reading some of this stuff out. There's quite a bit. Again, like buttons, like buttons, like buttons, like buttons. We are only here on the YouTube side. I am not live on Rumble. There's a reason. This is because I got tomorrow morning shows already set up for Rumble, and I didn't think about it until us. And I'm like, oh, let's just do something anyway, being that I'm starting, late as it is. Let's do this. There you go. Just in, Turkey's Erdogan claims victory of presidential runoff, extending authoritarian rule into third decade. Amazing how easily something can be, one was taken, used, for their own. I really hate the fact that he's been in power for so long. It seems ridiculous to put anybody in power for that period of time. But then, right, exactly. There you go, Michael Hagan. What's up, brother? Says Mao. Yeah, exactly. When it comes down to it, how long do dictators really rule? For a long time. For a long, long time until they're no longer able to either rule or they pass. they succumb to the will of of being dead, completely dead, and that's the only thing that happens. There's only a few ways for that to actually work, and for it to actually work its way through. So to read this out, it says Turkey's president Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Sunday claimed victory in the presidential runoff against challenger Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. Only winner today is Turkey, Erdogan said, according to AP. Erdogan has been in power for 20 years. The latest victory will give Erdogan another 5 years in office. So, 25 years, holy quarter century, holy crap. That's a long time. That's a long time, right? See, then you got Gohagen, then you get their asshole kids, right? So AP reported Turkey's incumbent president Recep Tayyip Erdogan declared victory Sunday in his country's runoff election, extending his increasingly authoritarian rule into a third decade. With nearly 99% of the ballot boxes open, unofficial results from competing news agencies showed Erdogan in 52% of the vote compared to 48% for his challenger, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. Now, here's that's too close. 52 to 48. I don't get how a country can be so evenly divided. That's really ridiculously close, and when you think about, within 4 percentage points, it seems as there's more and more presidential, dictatorship races that around the world that have come down to such a close tie, so close to a tie that it's obviously it's not a tie. There's 4 percentage points. But at the same time, that just doesn't seem right. It really seems too close, and almost like there should be some kind of a runoff recount of any type of sort. It to me, it seems too close for comfort to make anybody believe that it was potentially legit at all. I really don't see it being legitimate. In his first comment since the polls closed, Erdogan spoke with supporters on the campaign bus outside his home in Istanbul. I thank each member of our nation for entrusting me with the responsibility to govern this country once again for the upcoming 5 years. 5 years. I mean, I just don't see it being legit on how somebody can actually be, legitimately put into a position as they are like this. The people of the country, some of them are happy, some of them are excited, some of them are like, yeah, we got what we wanted, and then there's so many of them that are saying, shit, another 5 years with this asshole. We get it, we got to deal with him yet again. I wish I knew a little bit more about this guy and what kind of stuff that he's actually done for Turkey. It really, it's scary to actually think there's a good chance that if we actually took this name right here and we actually, plug it into, a Google machine real quick. And then let's see, let's put WEF after that. Let's see. Is he part of the World Economic Forum? Graduate Faculty of Economics, Marmara University, Istanbul, 1994. Elected mayor, Metropolitan Istanbul, 1999. Had to leave the office to serve 4 months of service. Isn't that something? Part of the World Economic Forum. Gee, I wonder how it is that he just so happened to come across and to be just that. It's here we go. It's super easy way to actually show this to you. Whatever. Let's stop one screen. Let's present this other one here real quick. So you can actually see just a simple Google search. It doesn't take much. Look at that. Erdogan, World Economic Forum, sitting right next to Klaus Schwab himself. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here at all. Don't worry about it. It's okay. Many of our poor, and I'd guess for a few dollars they'd vote for Satan himself. It almost seems that way, doesn't it? It almost seems that way, doesn't it? It's super simple to actually just get whatever you want without an issue. A margin of error should always be around 5%. Else of recount. Almost you'd almost think 5-6% would probably be a little bit better. Somewhere in there. The 4% doesn't seem to be enough, because I mean, in all actuality, we see 4% difference because the one side has 2, the other side has -2. But then when it comes down to it, it's like, well, if 2% actually left the one side and went to the other, it'd be dead even. So, we say 4, but is it 4 or is it 2? When you actually think about it, you actually, get into it and actually realize that, oh my God, this is what's happening. And this is what's happening all over the world. And every single other country that's out there, over and over again, that's the stuff that we're going to actually see. That's the stuff we're going to actually see over and over again happening. World Economic Forum shills winning out over and over again. Kind of kick it up here a little bit, move on. So it says U.S. is confident it can win a war over Taiwan. Admiral Aquilino says. So, of course, the United States in themselves is going to actually think that, something good will actually come out of this, and that we would actually, be victorious over and above any kind of Chinese aggression. So this is United States is confident that it would win a war defending Taiwan should China choose to mount an invasion in the United States Indo-Pacific. Commander Admiral John C. Aguilino says, the United States does not choose to escalate. We are not being provocative. That said, I'm confident that we'd be able to fight and win wherever it went. He said at a panel titled Preserving a Legacy of Liberty and Peace in the Indo-Pacific on May 23rd. Aquilino, during the event hosted by National Committee on United States-China Relations, said that the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, and President Joe Biden have tasked him with 2 missions. The first is to prevent this conflict, and then the second one, if I fail, mission 1, to be ready and prepared to fight and win. No matter when it happens, he added, the United States military is man-trained, equipped, postured, and ready to execute both of these missions. Possible invasion from China of the democratically ruled Taiwan, which the Chinese regime has long eyed to take over by force or not, has seemed increasingly possible since Russia's attack in Ukraine in early 2022. The tensions around the Taiwan Strait have continued to grow as Beijing escalates its threat campaign toward the island by sending missiles and warplanes close to the territory. Last month, a record 91 Chinese aircraft and 12 naval vessels appeared around Taiwan in Beijing, concluded its 3-day military drills in response to Taiwanese President Xi Jinping's stopover in the United States. Dozens of aircraft crossed the median line in Taiwan Strait into the island's air defense identification zone, the airspace that serves as a buffer outside its territorial airspace. The Chinese military, during the drills, conducted simulated joint precision strikes on key targets in Taiwan and its surroundings. The People's Liberation Army Eastern Theater Command declared that the Chinese troops were ready to fight at any time. to resolutely smash any form of Taiwan independence and external interference. Russia's illegitimate, unprovoked attack on Ukraine has given the rest of the world a new view on how authoritarian regimes work, Aquilino said on Tuesday. The globe has woken up, he said. I think the rest of the global community has a view of authoritarian nations and the decisions of one man. If he or she, man or woman, were to take that choice, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. He warned that military aggression in Taiwan would cost the Chinese leader blood and treasure. The global community can be pulled together quickly when they disagree, with actions taken in that fashion. Which is sad to actually think that the best way for the global community to come together is to have some other country come in and say they're going to take over, they're going to remove everybody. It's like, oh no, you're not going to remove either side. We're gonna now actually stand together against a common enemy. Which is sad that it has to actually come to such a thing. There's no reason that we should wait for a common enemy to go after before we actually go after them, or before we actually defend ourselves. There's no reason for it. In March, Paul Fritzler, chief scientist of Defense Intelligence Agency's Directorate of Analysis, told the House Armed Services Committee that China is ahead of Russia in developing hypersonic missiles and may have tested an arsenal capable of hitting U.S. military bases in the Western Pacific. Responding to concerns about aggressive Chinese military buildup, Aquilino noted that the United States utilizes the entire joint force to deter military threats. So now this hypersonic missile thing or whatever of them actually is being ahead of the United States is true. It seems as though every other country that's out there is actually ahead of the United States when it comes to this particular technology of hypersonic. China has actually run the simulated drills with hypersonic to actually see how long it would take them to actually sink some of our largest ships. And with hypersonic, as quick as could be, would take about 10 to 20 hits on any major aircraft and sink it immediately within moments. Hey, Rose, how's it going, dear? Good to see you. Responding to concerns about the aggressive Chinese military buildup, Aquilina noted that the United States utilizes the entire joint force to deter military threats. If we were to, unfortunately, get any kind of conflict for the United States, it's a synchronization, integrated efforts of the entire joint force under sea, on the sea, above the sea, in space and cyberspace. So if anyone were to choose to take on the United States, they're going to get the full Monty. So great that we're actually going to say, oh, come at us and find out. We'll take any forces that we have, whether it be subs or battleships or airplanes or satellites, whatever warfare, any way that they possibly can. The United States says that they'll actually take up for Taiwan. Now, we've already given billions and billions of dollars to the likeness of Ukraine over and over again, being that we continuously have given away most of our armament and most of our military might to another country. Something like this actually does occur. How much military might do we actually realize is actually going to be there to actually do such a thing? I don't think it's going to be as much as we actually think it's going to be. I really don't. While stressing that conflict with China is not inevitable, Aquilina noted that options that communicate with Beijing remain limited at the moment. One of those that critically important for me is that of communication, and it's precisely for the reason that I've repeatedly requested to speak with my counterparts in the PLA. It has yet to be approved. So requesting to speak with counterparts of the People's Liberation Army of China. Uh, you can request as many things as you want to communicate with them. It's totally up to them if they want to actually communicate back or not. You really seriously can't just expect them to just be like, oh, we should go talk to you. They're going to talk to us if they don't want to. They're going to do whatever they want to continue to do. There's a technical connection to defense telephone line that could be used. If there were an event, I can tell you, I would pick up the phone and dial. I'm not sure anybody would answer on the other side. Aquilina said that he has called on communication for 2 years without progress. 2 years. 2 years he's been attempting to actually, use communications with the People's Liberation Army. And yet again, we're holding out hope that we can actually do so after 2 years. After 2 years of being ghosted, do you look for your friends that are no longer there? Do you seriously go look for it's exactly what it is how ridiculous can you be to actually think that you're going to actually open up lines of communication with them after being unsuccessful for a couple years? I just don't see it happening. It's a quote. I do believe establishing routine communications between two militaries is critical to responsibly manage competition, to mitigate risks, and to avoid miscalculations. He said, I do not believe that engaging in an open and candid discussion should be used as a bartering chip. I do not believe that engaging in open and candid discussion should be used as a barter chip. What do you want to use as a barter chip? Nothing? Just be like, well, it doesn't matter. You're going to do what you're going to do. We're going to do what we're going to do once you do that. And this could be dangerous for so many places around the world. Because the second that the U.S. gets in on something that really isn't their place to get in on it, the other country's not going to be happy with that. And with hypersonic and the way things are, they could hit somewhere here in the States without us even paying attention to it. Right here in our own soil. The stakes today are high and the conflict cost would be too great. So it sounds like they're willing to actually, step up to the plate for Taiwan to actually take on the means of or the likeness of China. But at the same time, the after doing it for a few years, it kind of you come to a conclusion, to a realization that that's not going to be a thing. It's not going to be. There's no way that they're going to us and just be like, oh, okay, we'll talk to the States. Let's go talk to the United States and let's stop doing whatever it is that we've been doing. No, just no. That's not how it's going to work. There's no way. So then, speaking of China and the stuff that they have actually going on, seems as though House Democrats help Biden shield China's solar industry from U.S. tariffs. So this clean energy bullshit, for whatever reason, continuously seems to be a thing. And for whatever, we're we're allowing the ridiculousness of what they call clean energy to take over. So now you got House Democrats and Republicans shielding China's solar industry from U.S. tariffs, and it's like, oh, don't tax that. Don't tax that anything more than it already had been, because if you do, it's going to be harder for us to actually, bring this stuff into our country to bolster its ridiculousness of clean energy, which is a lie in itself. It really is. So it says nearly all House Democrats, along with 8 House Republicans, helped tank an effort to override President Joe Biden's veto of the bipartisan plan that would have restored United States tariffs on China-made solar panels. You know, overriding bipartisan plans. It's fine, I guess, if that's the way you feel. But I don't know. My thoughts aren't complete on this right now. It's disturbing to actually realize that Republicans are actually going along with some of what's actually happened. Erdogan. Yeah, that's the first thing that we actually hit on. You'd have to go back to the very beginning of the half hour here to actually hear what we had to actually say about Erdogan. Good to see you though, RZ. Welcome. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you hadn't already. Hit the like buttons while you're at it. In June 2022, Biden announced a 24-month tariff moratorium on solar panel imports from Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia. Commerce Department officials suspect that the solar panels were actually made in China, but have been routed through the 4 Southeast Asian nations to avoid U.S. tariffs on China-made solar panels. The suspension of tariffs come over to Biden's Commerce Department found that BYD Hong Kong rerouted its production through Cambodia, Canadian Solar in Trina, through Thailand, and Venezuela through Vietnam for the sole purpose of avoiding the tariffs. So to avoid being taxed for trying to export from China into the United States, China's gone a roundabout way, going through these other countries like Cambodia, Canadian Solar, Thailand, and we'll just send them there, and then when they buy the stuff and they purchase the stuff from these other countries, it's okay. We can actually avoid being taxed, over and over again for the product that we've actually produced. It sounds kind of disturbing to actually think that's where they're actually going with that they're okay with sending stuff through other countries to get it to us. We don't want their green energy. I don't get it. I don't know anybody that really does want anything to do with the green energy. The green energy is worse for this planet than the green energy that they're actually, talking about. Solar plants, wind turbines. It's actually worse. It's actually worse for us than running coal power plants in themselves. But then again, you look at nuclear energy, which would be the greenest of all, and they're like, oh, it comes with a bad word of nuclear on front of it. Hopefully we can actually really kind of pick up and actually move past some of that and actually, get into that fusion type of power, as opposed to actually doing any of whatever's happening now. So it says the only Republicans to oppose to override Biden's veto were the same group that initially joined most Democrats to oppose restoring the tariffs. John Curtis, Utah; Anthony Despacito, New York; Andrew Garbarino, New York; Nicholas Lalota, New York; Mike Lawler, New York. What's up with New York? New York got an issue. Marcus Molinaro, New York. Thomas Massey out of Kentucky, and then Marionette Miller Meeks out of Iowa. So, when you look at it, it's just like you got 5 New York representatives that are, Republican representatives that are stepping back and being like, we'll back the Democrats and what they want. Because why? Are you not a Republican? Are you a rhino? Is that what's going on? You're a rhino. Failing to override Biden's veto says that we will allow trade cheating. We want cheap stuff at any cost. We don't really care about forced labor. We don't care about dirty coal being used to make the panels that take 10 years to use to offset the dirty coal that went into them. You see that? Even this guy, Rep. Jason Smith out of Missouri, realizes how much dirty coal, quote unquote, actually goes along and into the process of making such panels. That's gross and very disturbing to actually think about. This 24-month moratorium of those tariffs is not temporary. It's permanent because they're building wafer plants there in order to comply and not be found to circumvent tariffs later. So we'll get solar from those countries forever, not just temporarily. We don't want their shit. We don't want their garbage. That's exactly what it is. It's garbage. It's waste. After like 10, 15 years of use, they go to the trash heap. They go to the trash heap, and then what? They're gonna go dig it out of the trash heap and ship it back to China to actually be recycled and reused? Gee, sounds great for the United States. From 2001 to 2018, U.S. free trade from China eliminated 3.7 million American jobs from the economy. 2.8 million of which were lost in American manufacturing. During the same period, at least 50,000 American manufacturing plants closed down. Those massive job losses have coincided with the booming U.S.-China trade deficit. In 1985, before China entered the World Trade Organization, the U.S. trade deficit in China totaled $6 billion. In 2019, the U.S. trade deficit with China totaled more than $345 billion. Holy crap. Trade deficit of over $345 billion? Why? I mean, how many billions of dollars is the United States in debt to every other country other than just ourselves? There's no way that anybody can afford to allow this continue at all. They don't burst into flames, right? While skyrocketing U.S. trade deficits have led to devastation across America's working and middle class communities over the last 2 decades, tariffs would be a boon for reshoring jobs and boosting wages. Studies show. One such study finds that tariffs on nearly all foreign imports would create about 10 million American jobs while boosting domestic output. imports would create more than 10 million American jobs. I mean, is there any other way that they would like to actually lie to us? I really want to know how many times they can continuously lie to us over and over again about any of this. I don't, let's stop the screen for a second. I was sharing the window as opposed to just the screen. Let's watch what this guy has to say. This is Senator Josh Hawley.
On the subject of these sweeping mandates related to electric vehicles that the Biden administration has imposed, including now for our military, the metals needed to make the lithium-ion batteries in those vehicles are, of course, lithium, nickel, graphite, and cobalt. Now, can you tell me what nation is the largest producer of refined lithium in the world?
China.
No, I can't.
It's China. Can you tell me which nation is the largest producer of refined cobalt in the world?
No.
China.
It's China. Do you know what nation is the largest exporter of natural graphite to the United States globally?
China.
Senator.
It's China.
Okay.
So in all of these instances, these mandates, your decision to trade off our energy security in favor.
You caught that, right? China, 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 over and over again. Imagine the number and add one more and you're still not close to it. Right? What's up, Lucky Chucky? Good to see you, brother. Mike Hunt, how are you doing? Good to see you. We can't win. We'll never win. Hey, Div, how you doing, dear? Good to see you.
Of a radical climate change agenda is making us more and more dependent on China. And at the same time, you are denying mining, blocking permits for mines in this country that would allow us to develop nickel and copper and cobalt. Why? Why block the development of these resources in our own nation in favor of making us dependent on China?
Because we all love China over and over again. We love China because China's so good for everything that we're about that we should just bow down and just allow China to take over. Trump told us for 4 freaking years over and over and over and over again, China, over and over again said China. But nobody wants to freaking listen to it. They're like, oh, it's just China. No big deal. MZ, good to see you. Hello, Keith Gregory. Glad you're all here. That's awesome. Y'all haven't hit the like button. Please do so.
Senator, are you referring to the Boundary Waters?
I'm referring to the
withdrawal?
Twin Metals mine in Minnesota. I think that Senator Bross was just asking about.
Yes, near the Boundary Waters, which is an iconic place and, of course, a very valuable ecological system to many plants, animals, species.
Now to go along with what she was saying there, she said, well, this is the Boundary Waters. This is the Boundary Waters in Minnesota. Boundary Waters in Minnesota, there's this big, huge lake that's way up north that when you actually look at the border between the United States and Canada, that kind of runs into the lake. And then all of a sudden there's this big, huge steeple off the top of Minnesota before it drops back down, about midpoint of that lake and shoots straight across the country. That line, that lake up there, yes, very, very fun place to actually visit. I've been there. It's fun to actually realize that what it's actually worth. So do I agree with mining that particular area? Nah, not really. Not really. It's just such a beautiful area of country. To see something like that actually succumb to mining would be disastrous and scary in itself. Now, is that the only area that you could actually get said minerals and products out of?
No, no, but they're going to hit on those particular areas in specific for the reason of actually just doing that. So they can actually make it sound like, well, the only areas that you can get it are the most beautiful places. Wrong. Wrong. Over and over again, wrong. That's not exactly the only place that you're actually going to find such materials. You can find materials in several other locations across the United States, but we're unwilling to actually mine for the stuff here to actually do such a thing, to actually make ourselves reliable on ourselves. Instead, we'd rather be reliable on China and whatever China has to do and give us. Yep. So China. Yep. Over and over again. China. China's going to be the answer across the board on where they would prefer us to actually get these materials from, to actually produce the quote unquote clean energy that they so badly want us to actually go off of. I don't see it as being clean energy. I really don't. So then debt ceiling. Debt ceiling. It seems as though McCarthy, that guy that took about 15 times before he actually got sat into the speaker seat, that guy. It seems as though he's actually went back on some of the stuff that he was actually saying he wouldn't do, and did just that. China. Exactly, Mimsy. China. Schumer praises Biden. McCarthy deal tells Senate to prepare for weekend vote. Oh, really? Just prepare. Get ready. Get ready, because we're just going to, we're going to push it through. We're going to push it through in any way, shape, or form that we possibly can to actually get the debt ceiling raised just a little bit, just so we can actually not default. If you can't keep on raising the ceiling, there's no way raising the ceiling over and over and over again is going to protect us from defaulting one day. There's no way. It's kind of sort of like common sense, comes into play when you actually think about it. You really seriously, you're like, okay, I owe $10,000 to the bank for my car. I go and I get about zero of that paid off in the next year. And I'm going ahead and I'm going to go refinance to get a better car, because, my car is no longer, feasible for me. I need a better car. So I go trade it in. I hit up the bank and be like, well, okay, so I'm going to trade in my car. I'm going to raise that 10 to about 15,000 and get the new car. And I'm going to cruise around in a new car for the next year, not make another payment throughout the whole year, to watch, interest accrue, to only try doing it again the next year and the next year and the next year and the next year and the next year. It's over and over again. Why are we doing such a thing? There's nothing that's going to stop us from eventually defaulting. Ukraine has lithium, and we're so-called helping them. That's something. That's something. Common sense does not exist in government. I know, Great Liquor. I know. I say the things that I think that should actually be, and over again, those things cease to exist. Let's read this here. It says Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer praised President Joe Biden for reaching an agreement with Republicans to raise the debt ceiling, telling Senate colleagues to prepare for a weekend vote on passage of the deal. I salute President Biden for protecting the American economy and delivering the American families by taking the threat of default off the table, Schumer said in a letter to
other senators, I look forward to seeing the language of the agreement and reviewing it carefully. On the evening of May 27th, Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, announced during a press conference that he and Biden had reached what he called an agreement in principle that's worthy of American people to raise the debt ceiling. In addition to raising the debt ceiling, the bill would cap non-defense spending at its previous levels, enhance work requirements for government assistance, and reclaim unspent COOF relief funds, among other measures. The deal announced Saturday harkens at the end of the month's long standoff between House Republicans over the debt ceiling. A final legislative text of the package is expected sometime in the evening of May 28th. Now, I've been watching and listening to see if anything actually happened, and I didn't see if anything actually did happen tonight. I was looking to see, I didn't see. It didn't seem like they actually went ahead and passed this weekend. Following the meeting between McCarthy and Biden to hammer out the final details. Once the final legislative text is ready, it will be made available for all members of the public to review. Schumer said the House is expected to consider the legislation this coming week. We will continue to give conversation as a caucus and as we review the agreement over the coming days. Schumer said he would immediately move to consider the bill in upper chamber following the House's finalization of the package. Due to the time it may take to process the legislation in the Senate without cooperation, senators should prepare for potential Friday and weekend votes. It's unclear if Senate Republicans, 43 of whom signed a letter at Schumer demanding substantive reforms for their support in raising the debt ceiling, will back the compromise, which has proved divisive in lower chamber, where some Republicans have criticized the deal as a surrender to Biden and Democrats. Reps Lauren Boebert, Ralph Norman, Bob Good, Dan Bishop, and Chip Roy have all indicated that they won't be supporting the package. So you do have some Republicans that are willing to say, no, we're not going to support you and in your dealings with the debt ceiling. We don't want anything to do with that. I'm just going to take a quick glance again just to see if there's anything that come up with in the last hour. Pressure is on for lawmakers to get behind debt ceiling bill to avoid default. Wrinkles and curveballs in debt ceiling bill. It doesn't seem as though they've actually passed the debt ceiling bill. And obviously too late to actually do anything tonight. Tomorrow is an actual, holiday in itself. Yeah, it does not look like they actually passed the bill. It looks like it's still sitting there. And that's something. Just let it sit there. It's okay. Schumer's analog of the House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, the non-committal, when asked if Democrats would support the package. However, he indicated he supports an overarching goal of avoiding a catastrophic default. Biden expressed confidence about the package's prospects in Congress on May 28th. I'm about to go in and call McCarthy now at 3 o'clock to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. I think we're in good shape, he said. The president said there were no further sticking points about the package. While Schumer's comments make clear he plans to support the package, he nevertheless took the opportunity to criticize Republicans who he said were extreme. Those have been a difficult few weeks given how intrinsic the extreme, the MAGA Republicans are. Of course, that's the ones that he's going after. He doesn't care about all Republicans, just those extreme MAGA ones. But nonetheless, he must avoid default and its grave consequences for American people. The rush to pass the package comes as the United States stands just days away from default. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has said the federal government will run out of money on June 5th if the debt ceiling is not raised, a date she called a hard deadline for passage. So there are a few days left in the week. So by what? What's today? What is today? Today's the 28th, going on the 29th. So about a week to actually get this, finalized, to get this pushed through the way it needs to be, to actually raise the ceiling. Not that I agree with them. I really don't. I disagree with them. On that quite a bit. I don't think that it's something that we should really be interested in doing over and over again. Just let it default. Let it default, and that way, if it defaults, and the reason they don't want it to default, but if it does default, it takes away government officials' pay. Take away their pay. Remove their bankroll. Remove their bankroll, whole and whole. Remove it. Members of Congress are so rich and have so much money that if each and every single one of them put up so much, they could just pay it off for us. They could pay off the debt, being that they were supposed to work for us, for the people. Why not? Potato is passed out in Delaware. Of course he is. It's a holiday. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he be passed out? Okay. I got quite a few articles here. This is amazing how many that are actually sitting here. I'm going to see if I can't get through all of them. If I can't get through all of them, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. There's a lot. So this is James Coomer, FBI informant file links Joe Biden. Informant file links Joe Biden to $5 million bribery scheme. Oh, really? The subpoenaed FBI informant file links President Joe Biden to bribery scheme worth $5 million, House Oversight Committee Chair James Coomer publicly disclosed. Coomer revealed the size of the alleged bribe Wednesday in a letter to the FBI Director Christopher Wray, who continues to stonewall Coomer's subpoena to obtain the unclassified documents from the Bureau. In the letter threatening action, Coomer pledged to hold the FBI in contempt of Congress if Wray does not provide the file. The two men scheduled a meeting next week to discuss the dispute. In addition to the sum of the alleged bribe, Coomer's letter revealed the date of the whistleblower's tip to be June 30th, 2020. Coomer issued a subpoena following legally protected disclosures by whistleblower to Senator Chuck Grassley's office. Based on the timing of the cash bribe allegedly offered to Ukraine, the New York Post speculated a link between the Biden family's deals in the Ukraine and the alleged bribe. In a remarkable coincidence, Ukrainian officials held a press conference in Kyiv on June 13th, 2020, 17 days before the FBI tip-off, where they showed off $5 million in cash allegedly offered as a bribe to end the investigation of natural gas company Burisma's founder, Mykola Zelensky. Burisma
first son, Hunter Biden, from 2014 to 2019 as an executive from the firm, met Vice President Biden at the April 16, 2015 dinner in Washington. The cash is seized by Ukrainian officials in 2020 was paid in American $100 bills that were put on display. The matches the amount that Joe Biden allegedly received years earlier. If the alleged bribe involved Burisma, speculation leaves unclear what, if any, U.S. policies were altered because of it. Joe Biden allegedly promoted U.S. support for Ukraine's natural gas industry only days after Hunter Biden joined Burisma's board in 2014. According to the former Obama White House stenographer Mike McCormick, then Vice President Joe Biden left office in 2017. Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss refused to allow McCormick to testify before the tax probe into Hunter Biden, McCormick told New York Post. In May, two IRS agent whistleblowers alleged that Justice Department politically interfered in tax probe. Joe Biden's appointed Attorney General Merrick Garland denied appointing a special prosecutor in the case to provide a degree of separation between the probe and Joe Biden. The DOJ's alleged political interference in the tax probe mirrors the FBI's resistance to provide the Bureau's informant file to Congress. As previously stated, the whistleblower disclosures indicated that FBI and Department of Justice are in possession of FD 1023 form describing the alleged criminal scheme involving then Vice President Biden and a foreign national relating to the exchange of money for policy decisions, Coomer wrote to Ray. The FBI's refusal to produce the single document in obstructionist, nevertheless, to narrow the breadth of its subpoena, we are providing additional terms based on unclassified and legally protected whistleblower disclosures that may be referenced in FD 1023 form June 30th, 2020, and $5 million. He continued. Coomer added, if he does not receive the informant's file, he will begin to process and hold the FBI in contempt of Congress, a step that would put significant pressure on the FBI to disclose the form. Mike Davis, founder and president of pro-Trump Article 3 Project and former chief counsel for nominations as Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley, told Breitbart News holding the FBI in contempt of Congress will pave the way to serious reforms, ensuring the FBI understands it's not above the law. For too long, the FBI leadership arrogance led them to believe that there's unaccountable to the American people. Their obstruction and contempt of Congress will further erode Americans' confidence in the FBI is fair and impartial. The FBI's mission to protect the American people, the FBI issued a statement to reporters releasing confidential source information could potentially jeopardize investigations and put lives at risk. The FBI remains committed to cooperating with Congress's oversight requests. So, as far as that goes, when you actually look into it, and actually realize that, they don't care. The oversight committee is going to try doing whatever they can, against the FBI, against the Biden family or whatever. But, the oversight committee really seriously just going to continue to push the way they are. Hopefully more and more people actually start waking up to what the FBI is actually doing to American people and not actually protecting us. They don't care about us. They don't care about us whatsoever. They care about themselves and who's actually paying them. Us, but they don't care. It's so confusing. Oh, it's the government itself. You should call the show the Koolfrogg Report, like the Druid Report. Oh, well, just kidding. Oh, you don't like Shtick with Koolfrogg? It's been like this for a year and a half. But, you start looking into things like this and you actually start realizing that
The FBI is so damn corrupt. And they're going to continue to do what they're doing. True. No, it's okay, Mimsy. I got you. I don't want to do it that way. I like it my way. Sorry. There you go. To continue. So James Coomer, FBI informant, file links Joe Biden for $5 million bribery scheme. Wait a minute here. Stop. Why didn't that go away? I closed that. Why did it reopen itself? That's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted. All right, let's go to this one. Breaking. Democrats and Republicans reach agreement in principle over debt ceiling. We already read the debt ceiling thing. What the hell? What is going on here? My tabs are all messed up. They're all backwards, smashed into each other. I got so much going on from the last 3 days. I swear to God, I had this stuff in order. Boomer. You can't spell? Well, I'm having problems running the show. It's okay. Tim Scott warns of Democrats' plan to divide the GOP. So, this guy's actually going to, try running for president, Senator Tim Scott. So this is GOP presidential candidate. Senator Tim Scott is sounding the alarm about Democrats' plan to break Republican candidates and use it against them in the 2024 race. Scott argued that Democrats could weaponize the words of Republican candidates against each other, adding that the road to socialism runs right through a divided Republican Party. And that's really what it comes down to, is we need to actually not be divided as a Republican Party. We need to actually stick together as a whole and defeat these Democrats. I'm sorry. I've really seriously been there. I've voted for Democrats before, been one of those that voted for Obama twice to actually turn around and just be like, this isn't good. This isn't good for anybody. And decided to turn around and start voting. And I voted for Trump twice. Will I vote for him again? Probably. Under current circumstances, I really don't see anybody that's going to be anything better than that, other than maybe RFK Jr. Maybe. But then he's trying to run as that Democrat. So it really kind of makes me question some of his thoughts and where he's actually trying to go with that. Quote, everything we say about each other, the Democrats will weaponize against all of us, no matter who the nominee is. Scott suggested the ongoing feud between newly announced GOP presidential candidate Ron DeSantis and former President Trump could spark mayhem in the Republican Party as they frequently fire shots at each other. Instead of trying to smear his GOP rivals as they fight for the 2024 ticket, Scott said that he would focus on America and destroying the leadership of President Joe Biden. I like that thought. I really like that thought. Be like, I don't care what y'all going to do. I'm not going to sit there and mince words and fight against you. I don't want to actually alienate anybody on the on the right or whatever. We want to actually, keep them solid, because if you can keep them solid and voting for one person in particular, you can take care of this quote unquote leadership that we're under of Joe Biden. I really seriously, that's my big thing, is I really hate Joe Biden. And I know a lot of people would be like, well, so you're going to vote against what you don't like as opposed to voting for what you like? No, absolutely not. We here are going to continue to actually look at this run up into 2024 and actually pay attention to every single person that's there on both sides of that. of that bird, try seeing if we can actually figure out who is the best for this job. I know I still have a Trump 2024 flag standing behind me. But that's what it is, I guess. This is quote, I'm going to focus on real problem in America. The real problem in America is the feckless leadership of Joe Biden. It is time for America to take a stand and elect a president who understands how it feels to be on both sides of the tracks, who understands that broken pieces become a whole opportunity in America. Scott continued to say that those who represent the greatest conservative party in modern American history would not be able to be attacked by the left. He called the Republican colleagues to stop dividing the conservative movement and instead focus on fixing the economy, military, and foreign policy. DeSantis and Trump have made headlines for ruthlessly attacking one another. After Scott's campaign announcement, the former president said Scott's candidacy is a big step up. DeSantis, which he called totally unelectable. However, DeSantis is Trump's top contender for presidential race and has often topped Trump in the polls, which is not true. Every single poll that I've actually looked at, seen, it puts Trump at the top. Not a single poll has put DeSantis over the top of Trump in any article whatsoever. I've looked several places and you cannot find something that actually says DeSantis is better than Trump or has out contended Trump in any way, shape, or form. Not yet anyway. Not yet anyway. We'll give that a little bit of time and see if, see what happens here in the future. See if anything, bigger, better actually does come out of that. Let's see what's next. I found this slightly interesting. Thought it was kind of disturbing that this particular person had something to do with this. This exclusive rail industry backed by Ted Cruz privately lobbies House GOP to tank bipartisan Railway Safety Act. Out of all the things that have actually happened from East Palestine to the latest amount of chemical that had been dropped out of a rail car heading out of Wyoming into California and losing its old load without anybody even realizing, it really seriously, it seems as though we should have some kind of Railway Safety Act, but for whatever reason, this Republican of Ted Cruz has decided to actually go against it. So this is backed by highly influential rail industry lobby. Ted Cruz, backed by the highly influential rail industry lobby in Washington, D.C., is privately lobbying House Republicans from Texas to tank the bipartisan Railway Safety Act. Introduced following the disastrous train derailment caused by Norfolk Southern that rocked a small community in East Palestine, Ohio, Breitbart News has exclusively learned. In February, a Norfolk Southern train derailed in East Palestine with a population of less than 5,000, leaving chemicals spewing into the community's environment. Since then, officials estimate more than 43,000 fish and other aquatic animals have died from the results of the toxic chemical spill that has left ground soil contaminated while residents fear drinking in tap water. Senator J.D. Vance out of Ohio, Senators Josh Hawley out of Missouri, Marco Rubio out of Florida, Fetterman out of Pennsylvania, Casey out of Pennsylvania, and Sherrod Brown out of Ohio introduced a Railway Safety Act to, among other things, increase fines for companies like Norfolk Southern that spur such disastrous train derailments. Likewise, the bipartisan bill would require rail companies to notify local firefighters and other first responders when hazardous chemicals were traveling through such communities. The bill, is deeply opposed by the nation's biggest rail companies, including Norfolk Southern, which have been lobbying lawmakers in Washington, D.C. to oppose the legislation. Among those opponents is Cruz,
a longtime beneficiary of campaign contributions from rail companies, who is circulating a letter to House Republicans representing Texas that have them publicly trash the Railway Safety Act and specifically secure opposition from Reps Troy Nels out of Texas, who leads the subcommittee on railroad, pipeline, and hazardous materials. The letter circulated by Cruz, exclusively obtained by Breitbart News, reads in full. Dear Senators Cronin and Cruz, we are writing to express our strong concerns for S-576, the Railway Safety Act of 2023. The bill is recently referred out of the Senate Commerce Committee. Collectively, we represent XX Texas congressional districts that are home to hundreds of communities and millions of Texans. We are troubled by the February train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, and we believe any legislative response should address the root causes of the incident and be crafted with due regard for the potential impacts on the goods that Americans need. Unfortunately, the current bill is overly broad, needlessly perspective, and will empower the Biden administration and Secretary Pete Buttigieg for discriminate against the movement of American energy products like coal, oil, natural gas, and ethanol. We worry the bill will drive up costs on American consumers and lead to more freight moving by truck than rail, which carries greater risk to the public. Yeah, apparently the way you look at it, or hear of less truck accidents than I do rail accidents. But yeah, okay, let's look at it that way. The bill delegates broad authority to the Biden administration to conduct dozens of mandatory actions. Given the administration's hostility for traditional fossil energy, we worry these new rulemakings and authorities will be used to target energy resources that are safely developed right here in Texas. Many of the bill's mandates are entirely unrelated to the East Palestine derailment, such as the first ever federal crew-size mandate and a requirement to double the frequency of certain locomotive inspections. The mandates also include new speed restrictions and further labor requirements at a time when rail service has suffered as a result of workforce shortages and limited network capacity. The cost of these new rules would ultimately be borne by our constituents and other American consumers. We urge you to refrain from supporting the bill unless significant improvements are made. The National Transportation Safety Board will hold a field hearing in East Palestine next month, and its final report is expected to include specific recommendations. With the benefit of the analysis, we could craft legislation that would address the root causes and encourage innovative safety improvements rather than imposing broad, regressive mandates. We remain committed to working with you and others to keep Texans safe and prosperous. Sincerely. And then it says draft letter obtained by Breitbart News. So it's just a draft letter. So not necessarily is this exactly what will be actually sent out from Cronin or to Cronin and Cruz. It's really kind of, I think that we really need some kind of backing by the government for some of this, as we see that private companies in the railway have actually been affected in the long run. And I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong and just be like, nah, maybe not. Maybe it's not a good thing for the federal government to have anything to do with the railways. Maybe they need to stay away from it and leave it actually privatized. Either way, something needs to happen to actually train people properly to watch these trains as they move down the tracks and be sure that there's nothing wrong with them over and over again, to be sure that they make it there safely. If you can't find people to do it, it seems that there's an awful lot of people moving across that southern border that might be looking for a job. Just saying. In 2018, facing re-election, the Political Action Committee, funded by BNSF Railway, donated $10,000 to Cruz, while executive at BNSF Railway donated more than $35,000. Likewise, Union Pacific Railroads donated $10,000 to Cruz and spent almost $7,000 to help him get reelected. Meanwhile, in the same year, Norfolk Southern funded Cruz's re-election campaign for the tune of $5,000. Similarly, the Cruz-aligned Competitive Enterprise Institution, which has lobbied against Vance's legislation, has funded directly by the railway industry, including Norfolk Southern, Union Pacific, CSX Corporation, BNSF, and the Association for American Railroads. Also in 2018, a PAC affiliated with Cruz enjoyed massive support from rail companies, including $30,000 from Union Pacific, $20,000 from CSX corporations, and $20,000 from Norfolk Southern. There have been more than 450 train derailments across the state of Texas since Cruz took office in 2013, causing 11 deaths, 44 injuries, and sparing over $129 million in damages. Most recently, Union Pacific train traveling from Wyoming to California lost roughly 60,000 pounds of ammonium nitrate, a chemical used for explosives. Currently, officials suspect the explosive chemical leaked through the bottom of the train while in transit. Under Vance's legislation, first responders where the Union Pacific train carrying the ammonium nitrate passed through would have been notified in advance by the rail company that such hazardous material were in proximity of other communities. A spokesman, how that would have actually stopped the stuff from actually leaking outside the bottom of the train is beyond me. But knowing that all these it's gonna be moving from one spot to the other. Somebody knew that it was moving from one place to the other, and it still happened. How is warning the whole community going to stop it from happening? Are people going to be watching these trains coming through like, oh, that's the one that's got the chemicals on it? Everybody watch the train, make sure nothing's leaking from it. I deleted longer draft letters than this and sent hi instead. Show us the sent letter. Drafts mean nothing if they stay unsent. I know. I agree. But that's exactly what it is. So we can hope that that's something similar to what actually does get sent through. Otherwise, we just never know. Under Vance's legislation, first responders were in the Union Pacific train carrying ammonium nitrate passed through what would be notified by advance by the rail company as such hazardous materials for proximity of communities. A spokesman for Cruz did not reply to a request for comment at the time of this publication. Why they would actually want to take away this particular bill, act, I guess you'd call it, Railway Safety Act, in the attempt to actually remove such a thing and stop it from actually, becoming a thing, that there has to be more to it on why they would actually want to actually put a stop to it, and what is it that Cruz is actually going to get out of this? Because most people don't do something for nothing. There's a reason. There's a rhyme for all reasons when it comes down to it. Rocked a small community, so that's how an environmental disaster is described. Yeah, just the community that it rocked. It didn't rock the rest of the country or the world or anything else. Just a small community, about 5,000 people that were affected. 43,000 fish and other aquatic animals. Those are nothing to look at. It's just small numbers. No big deal. These railroad companies need to invest in skilled labor to run their trains safely, but they won't Of course they won't. Of course they won't. They don't want that. They don't want to make it easy. Let's not do that. Couple of things. Where it is. Let's do this one, and then we'll kind of. I have several others that we'll kind of hit on in a quick manner because we are getting down to the last about half hour. Where I like to be. I do have a lot here though, so. There you go. Texas-based Fort Hood renamed Fort Cavazos after backlash against Confederate Civil War generals. Now, I'm totally down for them renaming, such a thing, removing the likeness of Fort Hood and turning it into what it is, being that they have the tendency to point at why these things were originally named and who they were originally named after. Since one of the country's largest military bases is a new name, with Fort Hood now being officially called Fort Cavazos, the base was commissioned in the 1940s by John Bell Hood, who had been commander of the Confederate Texas Brigade during the Civil War. Which, okay, I get it. The guy was a Confederate, commander, so maybe we shouldn't actually be putting him up on as the name of the place that we're actually naming things after. But then again, as opposed to just removing the name and changing it to this other person's name of Cavazos, I mean, are we going to still teach the history of John Bell Hood and what he was about? Are we going to consider that? Are we going to teach people exactly why we changed the name, or are we just going to change the name and then forget about teaching people exactly where or what why they were originally named that way? The Texas base, the third largest in the U.S., is now named after General Richard Edward Cavazos, the first Hispanic American four-star general and brigadier general, according to the statement from the Army. Both baseball legends Jackie Robinson and music star Elvis Presley went through Fort Hood. Yes, don't erase them. Right? Erasing the history of it, completely, and not telling people about what these Confederates were about and why they were actually, given, the place in history as they were, could actually prevent us from teaching the history that we need to stop history from repeating itself. Cavazos served in Korea and platoon leader in the E Company 2nd Battalion 65th Infantry Regiment, where many of the soldiers were from Puerto Rico and only spoke Spanish. Cavazos also served in Vietnam as lieutenant colonel. The name change took place on May 9th. So, this is a while ago that it actually took a name change, but it took them this long to actually let the general public know about the name change, being that it took them so long to actually explain to the general public that they changed the name of it, is disturbing in itself. That did the people do people even really seriously know that this is what was going on? The name change took place in May 9th and is one of 10 U.S. Army installations being renamed based on recommendations from the Naming Commission to remove references of the Confederacy. Other bases having its name changed included Fort Bragg, North Carolina, now named Fort Liberty, Fort Lee in Virginia, now named Fort Gregg Adams, according to the New York Times. We are proud of renaming Fort Hood as Fort Cavazos to recognize in recognition of the outstanding American hero, a veteran of the Korea and Vietnam Wars, and the first Hispanic to reach the rank of 4-star general in our army. General Cavazos' combat-proven leadership, his moral character, and his loyalty to his soldiers and their families made him the fearless yet respected, influential leader that he was during the time as he served and beyond, said Lieutenant General Sean Barnaby III, Armored Corps Commanding General. We are ready and excited to be part of such a momentous part of history while we honor a leader who we all admire. Now, I don't really know much about Hood, and I really don't know much about Cavazos other than what they're telling us in this article. Now, what happens in, 60, 70 years when they decide to actually maybe, 1940s to, 2023, when so, 90 years, give or take a few, when you actually think about it, in 80 years from now, are we going to also just be like, well, Cavazos really wasn't a good guy. We thought he was because, because he was, Hispanic in nature or whatever, and is that the good enough reason to actually name something after somebody? Was because he was a good general, or because he was a good lieutenant, or was it that because we're only doing it because of virtue signaling? Because if that's the case, that's sad in itself, and we shouldn't actually be changing names on something just to do just that. Black woman fired after being late for work 47 times, sues Equinox for discrimination, wins millions. Now, I don't care about the first word on there. I really don't. They could have put woman fired after being late for work 47 times, sues Equinox for discrimination, wins millions. And I'd still be like, what the fuck? Who can be late for their job that many times ever? I see you, Nix. And continue to think that they should be awarded anything whatsoever. Nonetheless, using that word to actually go ahead and actually try bolstering the fact that, well, it's okay that they were late 47 times because of that in particular. No, just no. No reason why anybody whatsoever should actually think that they should be awarded something for being lazy and not going to work. So this was last week. Manhattan jury awarded $11.25 million to 39-year-old Robin Europe, a black woman who sued her former employee, Equinox Jim, saying that she was unjustly fired for sexism and racism. Equinox claims she was fired for being late 47 times over 10 months, a fact that Europe acknowledged was true. It was true. She knew that it was true. She knew what she was doing. She was okay with herself being late for her job over and over again. Now, Equinox Jim, okay, big deal, right? But at the same time, now if this person decides, because you got the money, get the hell out of here. Fuck off with yourself. Nobody wants anything to do with you. Go and remove yourself from this business and never come back. You got the money. You don't need the job. Now that you got the money. Now, say you were working at a McDonald's. You were the person that was actually supposed to open that McDonald's every single day. And you were late 47 times out of the 10 months. Don't you think McDonald's would do the same thing and be like, done, fired, get the fuck out of here? What the fuck? I'm late because of technical difficulty. 5 minutes. I have to work extra day to recover for it. Others are late and get millions. What's the actual fundamentals? Good stuff. Good stuff. Her lateness was a pretext for discrimination. I guess. It's just okay. It's just okay for anybody to be late as long as you fall under certain racial guidelines. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. If you're a woman and you're black, you definitely can get away with whatever you want. That's pretty much what they're trying to actually say. It's okay. It's okay. She can be late. Europe believed her lateness was merely a pretext for discrimination. According to the New York Times, as a teen, Europe had experienced a coded bias of privileged teenagers because she went to an elite New York all-girls school barely on scholarship. After her teenage years, Europe spent time as a professional bodybuilder, then studied art in Oberlin College, then worked at David Barton Gym in their office to help support an apprenticeship in tattooing. Europe finally landed at Equinox in 2018, where she worked less than a year. She only worked there for the 10 months. She only worked there for the 10 months that she was late that many times. It wasn't like it was like all of a sudden 10 months in a row she was late. The whole time that she worked there, she repeatedly was late for her own job. According to the New York Times, Europe was noted that the management structure was predominantly male and white. And while at Equinox, Europe experienced unfiltered expressions of prejudice from male colleagues, such as one middle-aged white male who, according to Europe, had one black coworker had autism, and that several non-white employees were lazy. Europe claimed that same man, who also had vulgar takes on black female bodies, commanded she wait for him outside of the gym on one occasion because he wanted to flirt with a black woman at a cafe. Really? You knew this is what he wanted her to do? He asked you to say this so he could actually flirt with you? And you did? You're like, oh, that's what he wants? Okay, I'm going to stand here and I'm going to wait for him. I'm going to wait for him so that he can actually flirt with me because, whatever. What the hell? What the fuck is wrong with people these days? Europe said it was in a theory that he would be better positioned with a black person standing next to him. Europe said she refused to be a racial pawn. Europe also recounted how one client called the specifically asked for a white trainer. Okay, so I can't go and call somewhere and be like, I want to make sure that I have a specific trainer that's actually going to be best for me and my body type, because I, whatever reason, don't want a woman touching me in any way, shape, or form, assisting me in any way, shape, or form, because I don't like it. Do you see what I'm getting here? Is the white supremacy waking up early? Early bird must be white and has to be early for work, otherwise may delay their work shift start as much as the RGB skin tone. Good one, Nix. Good one. According to Europe, she told the employees that such a request exposed the company for liability and she had to pass the request along to a supervisor. The New York Times reported that the supervisor ultimately granted the client's request for a white trainer, but was later reprimanded and fired. Because you're going to lose your job because I don't want to work with this particular person. She's going to get everybody else in the business fired. What's that going to do? This is going to shut down the business. Now the business is going to cease to exist. Europe said in the incidents were so stressful that it made her bulimia worse. So she went to the law firm Crumier, to a feminist litigation firm, as they described themselves. Ultimately, Europe was awarded $1.25 million for distress and $10 million in punitive damages. According to New York Times, the verdict follows a pattern similar to the verdict reached by this same courthouse just a few weeks ago before E. Jean Carroll's defamation suit against Donald J. Trump. Oh, you don't say. Go figure. In both instances, the process and outcomes suggest that ways in which recent transformative social movements around the race and gender might reframe the way that juries think about the long shadow of emotional disruption and bigotry and violence it can produce. Rather than engaging in the current fashion of self-reproach and vowing to do better, Equinox instead vehemently disagreed and filed a motion for the court to reconsider its decision per the New York Times, as they should, over and over again. There's no reason that anybody should actually think that if I can go and I can get away with this, I'm going to open pathways for multiple other people to do the same. Bulimia. Seriously? Yes. That's what it says. That's what it says. And disturbing. Sounds kind of sad if you actually ask me. But, no big deal. No big deal. Don't worry about it. It sounds kind of disturbing and scary in itself to actually think that people are going to be able to get away with that highway robbery. 11.25 million. What the hell? This is actually kind of funny. This one I'm going to have to actually go and reshare to actually get the volume up for it. So you go, AOC called a piece of shit by constituent fed up with illegal immigrant infiltration of New York City. So this guy goes ahead and does some stuff here. So it says Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has heckled a town hall meeting in Queens, New York, Friday, with one poster calling her a piece of shit. Protesters took the issue with her stance on the border crisis, sending billions to Ukraine, drag queen story hour, and the debt ceiling. The congresswoman was speaking to her constituents at the Corona neighborhood as the scene descended into chaos. At some points, members of the audience were chanting America First, and one man in Cuba shirt yelled American citizens before migrants. The video posted by Freedom News TV shows the man asking, "Where are your migrant issues?" and calling her a piece of shit while being escorted away. So you can see that, this guy. Oh, that's loud. That's loud. American citizens before migrants. American citizens before migrants. That's all that's what he's chanting out. American citizens before migrants. Please, will you please sit down? Stand in line, wait your turn. Be a good little boy. Don't come up here and heckle me. Heckling me isn't going to get you nowhere. Get your hands off me. You say, get your hands off me. Don't you touch me. You don't have the right to touch me. Get your hands off me right now. other than the fact that he's actually standing in this room full of people that AOC is actually trying to speak to. If it was anybody else and it was, somebody doing it to them, we'd feel the opposite about somebody, berating a Republican that would be doing the same thing. Other than the fact that they wouldn't be raising American flags and saying, America first, yeah, it would have been totally something else. First place, they're illegal aliens, not migrants. True. He has the right to actually get your hands off me all he wants, but these people work for her, and they're gonna actually do whatever it is that she's being that her service detail is gonna ask them to do. Escort this guy out. He's being a hazard to this particular speech, and stopping her from being able to say whatever she wants to her quote unquote constituents. You heard him. You're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit. Of course, there's a bunch of them that are just like, oh, wait a minute. We don't, you look at like this lady here, whatever. She's like, really? She's a piece of shit? This guy's just looking at the camera, laughing like, oh, yeah, let's look at the camera. But you get the bunch of them that are just sitting there heckling him now. Boo, boo! You're calling her a piece of shit. You quit telling her the truth. Ah, crap! Sound not shared. Damn it! Of course.
So,
try that one more time.
Sir, we're taking lines. Sir, we're having people write their names on the computer.
American citizens before migrants. No.
Thank you.
American citizens. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. Where are you on the migrant issue? You're absent. American citizens. You're throwing veterans out of this country. Where are you? You're a piece of shit. You're a piece of
Okay.
Okay. It's okay. It's just a silly person up here trying to actually look at me and tell me that I'm a piece of shit. Look at me. See? I'm just what he called me. Don't worry about it. Yes, I am a piece of shit. Look at me. I look like a piece of shit.
The president has come out saying that he also believes that he has this authority. What he has also said is that he is not sure if he is able to implement the authority in time for the June 5th deadline. And so that is where we see kind of this impasse. I still believe, first of all, that we should start to implement it anyway, because we should eliminate the debt limit in the United States because of the constitutional. Now, let me
Oh, what about the $100 billion that we sent to Ukraine that you voted for? What about that?
Oh, you see if she gives him a good answer.
I will share something. I don't like that Republicans passed a 1.7 trillion tax cut on the wealth.
Oh, let's point fingers at the other side, because all we care about is pointing fingers at the other side. Who cares what we actually did do? Let's look at what they did. That smug smile of victory in the silence of the speech. Yes, exactly, Michael Higgins. She is a fucking moron.
Wealthiest people in this country. And I don't like that we continue to support our military budget. I don't like that we have enormous amounts of.
It is not your turn. I thought you wait your turn.
Yeah, me and my mask are gonna yell at you and tell you, wait your turn. Wait your turn. Let her actually.
That is exactly why we use paper slips.
You see that? America first. Stop funding Ukraine. You know, and you look at the huge diversity in this massive group of people that's actually sitting here, and you see that the ones that are actually calling her out for the bullshit, the ones that are actually stop funding Ukraine, and you look at it, it just really makes you seriously think that they're actually calling these people her constituents. These people are her constituents? What the hell? Next, look over there. Yeah, right? In every other direction. In every other direction, but looking at me. Look at them. Look at what everybody else is doing.
So next, we're going to go
nuclear war with Russia. We're sending F-6. If we send F-16, America's on the verge of nuclear war. It's not okay. Are we going to stop this war?
It's not okay. You got to stop this war. Or are they going to go walk around and they're going to kick every single person out of the room and just be like, you oppose anything that she's about, get out, remove yourself? It's kind of odd that not a single one of them is actually able to withhold their thoughts and just go stand up to the microphone, get up to that microphone and actually let her know exactly how they feel about the whole thing. Kind of sad in itself that these people actually have brought themselves of being that angry and disturbed to not actually just walk up and legitimately grab the microphone and speak your point. Speak your point and put her in her place.
Are you going to stop this war? That's my question. Are we going to?
Yeah, we know about the paper.
Yeah, we know about the paper. Why are you afraid of your constituents?
Oh, there you go. Let's go escort you out of the room now because you spoke up out of place, out of turn. You didn't have a microphone. Let's go. Time to escort yet another person out.
Because it has been
AOC, an obvious criminal. Obvious? It's been obvious. But there's so many people that don't care. They're just like, yeah, it's okay. She can do what she wants. Let her do it.
creating a lot of harm to poor and indigenous people. And we've also been able to fit that in there.
You guys vets? Did you serve?
20 years.
All right, please stop using the red herring. I served in Iraq. I apologize for going up.
No, please.
Because the fact is, immigrants have nothing to do with vets. It's just an excuse. If you want to talk, like I said, there's going to be other questions after this. We can talk. There's another vet in here. He's a friend of mine. You can talk to both of us. He served in Iraq and Afghanistan.
some respect.
Okay. All right, let's get.
Let the veterans speak. Let the veterans speak.
Who's this guy in the back with his mask down around his chin? Let the veterans speak. Serve food at KFC. Racky restaurant. Good for these people trying to stand up, even though they don't get a word in edgewise. I know, right? And that's the sad part is they're not getting their words in edgewise. They're not actually going up and grabbing that microphone and actually getting their words across the way they need to. Heckling, anybody is really not going to get you anywhere other than kick the fuck out. And that's exactly what's happening. Is they're all getting kicked out. They're not getting their point across.
You know what? We'll move on to the next question. Well, to the next person, but.
No, please. I'd love to hear your second question. Yeah.
But you know what? I just want to touch upon something she said earlier. And you know what? We all came, for the most part, we came here through Ellis Island.
We all did? Every single one of us? And that's something. But you think they'll be let to grab that mic? If they would shut up for about 2 minutes and actually walk up to the microphone, maybe they would have been allowed to, but they weren't allowed to because this is really exactly the deal.
No. Shut up. We all came through Ellis Island. Things are different. Things change.
And you heard the lady in the background, legally. They weren't just allowed to pour over the border, through Ellis Island. They had to actually come through. They had to actually apply for citizenship, and they were, eventually granted, that right. Not come across and marching across that southern border and be like, well, the same thing as Ellis Island. No, it's not. It's totally different.
Change over time. Shut up.
Legally, no, shut up. I don't want to hear about you legally, because why would anybody care about if they would come over here? You shut up legally or not? Well, I think the majority of us would actually have an opinion that legally is the best way.
I'm going to repeat the numbers again. It's 718-662-5970 if you would like to call the Congressman's office. If you would like to meet the Congresswoman, please form a line down the middle.
There's nothing more that actually happens at the end of that. But you can see what happens when you actually go and you start heckling somebody, calling them a piece of shit. You're going to get escorted out. You're not going to get your words out the way you need them to be. And the only thing that's going to happen is the other side is going to get their thoughts out, their opinions. Well, we all came, essentially all came through Ellis Island. Well, did we? Did we all come essentially through Ellis Island? And if we did all essentially come through Ellis Island, did we come here illegally? No, we didn't come here illegally whatsoever. We were all brought here in a legal state of mind. I'm at my 2-hour mark. We're at my 2-hour mark, so I'm just going to kind of glance at here. Let's do this one. This is something that's actually happened over and over again several times, several different ways. Climate activists arrested on federal conspiracy charges and damaging Daga's display in DC Museum. So when you actually see climate activists, going to the point of actually ruining, destroying
art and thinking that it's okay because it goes against their climate thoughts or whatever. It's damaging. That's damaging, and there's no reason that people need to continue to do this. Now we've watched, what, mashed potatoes, cans of soup, um, somebody gluing their hand to the ground or gluing their hand to the wall next to a painting or gluing ear to a painting. These two are sitting here with handfuls of paint, obvious proof that they're the ones that caused the damage. So says the pair of climate activists have been taken into custody following the federal indictment of conspiracy to commit an offensive against the United States and injury to the National Gallery of Art exhibit. Timothy Martin of North Carolina and Joanna Smith in New York, both 53, smeared black and red paint on the glass case of the pedestal of the Edgar Degas sculpture Little Dancer, aged 14, at the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. in April. Martin self-surrendered to Raleigh and Smith, self-surrendered to in D.C. on Friday. The Department of Justice wrote in a press release, according to the indictment unsealed today, Martin and Smith smeared paint on the case in the base of the Edgar Degas Little Dancer, age 14, a priceless work of art which has drawn visitors for years to the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. Following the attack of a group called Declare Emergency claimed credit over the last year. In addition to the offense, Declare Emergency has blocked roadways around the Washington, D.C. area. The indictment further alleges that Martin and Smith alleged, along with others currently uncharged co-conspirators, to enter the National Gallery of Art for the purpose of injuring an exhibit. Martin and Smith entered the National Gallery of Art armed with plastic water bottles filled with paint. Martin and Smith handed their phones to other conspirators and waited until patrons cleared the area in front of the Little Dancer. Martin and Smith proceeded to smear paint on the case and base of the exhibit, at times smacking the case with force. Before attacking the famed art piece, conspirators alerted the Washington Post, who sent 2 reporters to record and photograph the crime. Other members of the conspiracy also filmed and photographed the vandalism. According to DOJ, Smith and Martin caused approximately $2,400 in damage and caused the exhibit to be removed from the public display for 10 days so that it can be repaired. The extremists are facing a statutory maximum sentence of 5 years in prison and a fine of $250,000 if convicted. The case was investigated by FBI's Washington field office, specifically the FBI's art crime team, for assistance from National Gallery of Art, U.S. Park Police. Now, there's this video that's in here through Instagram. There's no sound. Need changing it to sound. Oh, they actually changed it. Sweet. There is sound. There was no sound earlier. They fixed it. They fixed it. Like actual footage of them actually damaging the podium that it stands on, the glass case. So I mean, good thing they didn't actually have the ability to actually get at the artwork itself, because who knows what they would have done to such a thing. You can see they're being, not so very quick at it. They're just kind of let's do what we want. People are around but not really watching or paying attention. You can see there's multiple people that are like, oh, what's going on here? I'm gonna go snap a picture of what they're actually doing. It's very disturbing to actually think that anybody would have the mindset to think that this is okay. That this is okay for me to go ahead and destroy somebody else's property, whether it be public property, private property, or anything else. It's gross. It'd be awesome if someone just kicked their asses. Right? It would have been cool if somebody just walked up to it and like grabbed this guy from around the waist and just, suplexed his dumbass.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Good evening, Madcore Mofo. How's it going, brother? Mimsy says this is okay and effective. Yeah, right. It's not okay, and it was very ineffective. It did absolutely nothing.
Everybody keep that back. We're here.
Beautiful. And we're destroying it with climate change. We need our leaders to take serious action to tell us the truth about what's happening with the climate.
We need our leaders to actually give us the truth about the climate. Exactly, Madcore. Fuck these people. These people are ridiculous and disturbing and so gross to actually see that they were able to do such a
For our
thing.
children, we are worried, like most of Americans, about climate and about biodiversity crisis. And we need our leaders to step up, put their differences aside, and simply be responsible. We are adults. We should be at home working. I have a job that requires health and safety, but I can't do my job unless I have a government that does their job of looking out for the health and safety of our children.
Guess what, dude? You no longer have a job. They sound like Scientologists. It kind of, don't they? They kind of do.
Especially the global south, who are all living at the expense of.
The most vulnerable, and that's why we decided to come visit this beautiful, beloved child that the world knows. She has sisters all over the world, amazing in fashion, but this is the original vision of the artist right here. She's imperfect, like we all are imperfect, but she's strong, and she is not resigned to destruction.
Remove them. Remove them permanently. There you go. You're under arrest, dude.
And our first job is to protect our children and future children.
If she was smart, as opposed to sitting there and continuously preaching about her ideology, she would get up and walk out right behind him, as opposed to being drug out like this guy. He has the same self-gratified smile as AOC did when she said okay to her fake Latina accent. Yep.
The climate crisis is unfolding now. It's all right in front of us. Our leaders have plans, and some of them are good. They're authorizing things that we need to erase.
Let's go, lady. Time to get arrested.
Then it was just the lady and the man. Everybody else
Hey, anybody else, don't let them come in. Anybody else?
Everybody move on or you will also be arrested. Take off. Quit filming it. Take off. Do what they said to do. Remove yourself from it. They're going to do the same damn thing. All right, let's go. I agree. They should have gotten the female officer to check her out, but as opposed to this old man, walking her out, because she's gonna actually try.
Take it easy with me. Thank you. Today my son told me that he's proud of me. He didn't know what I was doing today, but he's proud of me. And that is what matters to me.
We don't care what matters to you, old lady. Nobody cares what matters to you. The only thing that matters to you is being ignorant to the point and doing such a thing.
Hey, sir, do me a favor. Stand back, please. Thank you. Guys, stand back.
It's kind of surprising this cameraman hasn't been arrested yet, as I've told him several times to stay back from it all, and they've been standing on front of him as much as they possibly can. Now, if the lady actually, or if these two actually get arrested and actually charged with the crime, and it looked like it was, multiple years, or potential multiple years, as well as fines. So 5 years and $250,000. There you go, 5 years and $250,000. Now, most states that's felony, but they're in DC. They're in DC. They're not in a state. They're in DC. That's federal. It's federal crime. So federal felony. Go ahead, go sit in that cushy prison for the next, 3 to 5, and maybe not get charged with the $250,000, but probably have to pay for the case that they most likely damaged, that needed to be worked on and replaced. It took the next 10 days for it to actually, so you got to pay the person to actually fix it, all that on top of it. But yeah, this, the ignorance of these people thinking that it's okay to actually go around and cause the trouble that they're causing, over and over again. We've seen it, multiple times. People actually getting arrested for climate activation, being activists and actually trying to get away with whatever it is that they want to get away with. Okay. That article is no longer available. All right. I don't think I'm gonna do anything else tonight. We are over the 2-hour mark where I'd like to be. And I just want to be sure that these last couple articles that I do have aren't going to be anything of necessity. Yeah, they're not. Nothing of necessity. So, all that being said, thank you also very, very much for joining me tonight. I will be back tomorrow morning for a Memorial Day special at a regular time of 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. That's 8 o'clock out on the East Coast. I do have a couple things set up for that in particular. Thank you again for being here. If you haven't, please hit that like button. Share this out to all your friends, all those places that you like to actually share stuff to. And we will see you then. Have a good one. Love y'all. Later.